popular tourist destination, especially for residents of the U.S. border states. As a kid, I used to travel here with my family on vacation, but fewer tourists are making their way across the border these days. Once bustling streets are now empty. The increase in drug violence has produced a situation where not only tourists but locals are afraid to be on the streets.
Of course, it's a city without law. There's no law here.
It's not just that you have to be careful when you go out, or that when you're walking around the streets, like maybe something's going to happen to me. It's just that you talk to people and they're just hopeless.
In these days, you can trust. You see a policeman and you could doubt it. That would be in the cartel. That would be a honest policeman.
People have little trust in a police force that's become known for working with and protecting the cartels.
When you see all these cops out here, it's hard not to wonder who's a good guy and who's corrupt, because there has been so much corruption in the police world here in Mexico. The police don't have the best reputation here.
They have a very bad reputation. It's important to say it, and it's important to recognize it. It's the highest level of corruption that could be in a police force, and I'm in the process of firing about 400 out of the 1,600 police officers for failing lie detector tests, in where we have specifically asked them if they're involved in corruption with organized crime.
Some people blame the rise in violence to power shifts within Mexico's government. For 71 years, Mexico was ruled by one party, the PRI, which maintained order by allowing some cartels to operate as long as they kept their violence out of public sight. But in 2000, the PRI lost power and Mexico ushered in a multi-party democracy. Corrupt elements within the new political parties had ties to different cartels, and the war over control of the drug trade began to escalate. In Tijuana, one of Mexico's most violent cities, I visited the office of Alberto Capella, an outsider and reformer who was brought in to head the police force and to break the ties between the cartels and corrupt officials.
Well, you mentioned that you're fighting these two wars, a war within the police world and a war within the drug trafficking world. You must have a lot of enemies.
A lot of enemies, yes. And every day I have a new ones. Every year we are losing our space, our liberty, our freedom, because it's in the hands of the criminals.
Capella offered to give us a tour of the city. He showed up at our hotel in a convoy with an entourage.
We're heading right now on a patrol. We have one police truck in front of us. We have two armored vehicles full of policemen behind us, and we are here in the armored vehicle of Mr. Capella. You can tell by this. It's very thick.
Alberto Capella needs this much protection. Just before he took the job as head of Tijuana's police, 20 to 30 armed men came to his house. Capella was alone. His attackers fired 250 rounds into his house, but missed him. Capella, who had only held a gun half a dozen times in his life, fired back and drove them away.
And that was 3 days before you officially took the job. Did you have any reservation?
When they do that, I think maybe they don't like me. I don't know, but maybe no.
Oh my gosh.
There's in a restaurant. It was our 4 bodies who we found in.
And so these are all scenes that you visited?
In the last 2 weeks.
It's just body after body.
Capella tried to reform Tijuana's police force by getting rid of more than 100 officers, but the violence didn't stop. The month after we met him, he was fired as police secretary. While killings in Mexico's drug war continue to escalate, kidnappings are also on the rise as criminal groups look for other ways to make money.
You were kidnapped.
Yes, I was.
Can you tell me about that experience and what happened?
I spent 83 days with my hands tied up and my feet tied up to an iron bed
In 2008, the kidnappings in the border area have really reached what I would consider epidemic proportions.
I was laying on the floor, I just couldn't move. The chains that I had, any noise that they would make, it was for sure they were going to beat me up.
Now, who is doing these kidnappings? Who's responsible?
We believe it's different groups, factions of cartels that either currently exist, drug cartels, or that previously existed. We have had several instances where Americans have been kidnapped in this country and then brought south of the border, held there while the whole ransom process takes place. And that aspect of Americans being kidnapped on American soil is particularly disturbing.
Coming up. Every day along the U.S.-Mexico border, scenes like this are happening. A car is pulled over and searched. Drugs are recovered. These agents are battling to keep illegal drugs produced in Mexico or transported across Mexico from entering the U.S. To help block smuggling, the U.S. has been building a border fence since the 1990s.
It's Mexico. Right through that hole.
So we'll continue on west, and then we'll run into Smuggler's Gulch.
We met Agent Alatorra, who took us on a tour of the border fence in the San Diego sector.
The patches of concrete that you see in the road that we're currently on were all tunnels that were discovered by Border Patrol agents.
So there's so many of them right here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah, and we
6.
just passed 2.
So these are like 6, 7, 8 attempted tunnels.
Exactly. And they figure that it's easy enough, so there's quite a few attempts in this area.
As we drove, we saw new construction designed to foil smugglers.
Over here you can see across into Mexico and the pretty flimsy existing border fence, which is why they're building this new one right here. So Agent Alatorra was just saying that in this neighborhood over here, you can see it's pretty run down. Smugglers will pay people here, say $50, give them a cell phone, and have them be lookouts over here so they can call and they can give them intelligence and say, the agents are patrolling, or now it looks like it's a clear time to cross. As we drove on, we saw that even Smuggler's Gulch, a rocky canyon that's been inaccessible to Border Patrol vehicles, is undergoing a massive transformation. So they have basically just knocked out this mountain here.
Yeah, what they did is they scraped off the sides of the canyon and started to push all of the dirt that they're scraping off into the canyon itself. Again, the end result is going to be 1.3 million cubic yards of dirt that they're going to push into this canyon. It makes it easier to install the secondary fence, install the camera systems, and install the lighting, all to try and maintain operational control of our nation's border.
While the U.S. is trying to combat the smuggling of drugs into the country, the Mexican government is trying to keep a different kind of contraband purchased in the U.S. from being smuggled into Mexico.
You can see the no gun signs.
In Mexico, private citizens are largely barred from possessing guns. Yet, just like illegal drugs in the U.S., there are plenty of guns available to Mexico's warring cartels.
Organized crime goes into the United States and buys arms that they come here and they use against police officers, and they use against army, and they use against each other.
The U.S. federal agency in charge of fighting guns of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
These drug cartels have the money and they can afford these weapons. At least 90% of the weapons recovered in Mexico originate in the United States.
How do you know that? Is that because you've traced them back to the
Exactly. That's based on the trace information.
So when you're talking about guns from the U.S. going into Mexico, what states are we talking about?
Mainly it's the 4 bordering states. Texas is the main one because Texas is so big. It's the most of the legal guns, the guns being illegally trafficked, come from Texas.
Texas is one of the few states that permits the sale of assault weapons.
What you see are all legal firearms in the trade.
Texas, it's legal for U.S. citizens to buy an assault weapon after undergoing a background check. But purchasing weapons for someone else, or say a drug cartel, is called a straw purchase and can get you a minimum of 5 years in federal prison.
What are the 3 things you look out for in a suspicious purchase?
An individual coming in and asking for a firearm that they have no concept what it is. An individual coming in requesting multiple purchase of the same type of firearm. The third is an individual who is obviously, because of their nervousness or lack of understanding, is uncomfortable coming in and making a purchase, and then we question that. And these are usually females who have been offered money to make this purchase.
Guns for sale in Texas can be worth much more in Mexico, even if smuggling them there is a violation of Mexican and U.S. law.
The drug cartels in Juarez have advertised openly they will pay $5,000 for any AR-15, AK-47 type rifle, no questions asked. If somebody will pay you $5,000 for one of these guns up here, what kind of a chance would you take to buy one or steal one and try to get it south?